Good morning. This is Jen the Liberty Lion, and today I want to go over a post that I made on my YouTube channel in the community room. And the reason why is because the community um, post can't be shared as easily as a video. The community posts don't allow you to generate a link, whereas a video you can generate a link and just shoot it off to your friends and family. So I want to go over positive law. But before I go over positive law, I want to explain that things could be written by people, attorneys, judges, lawyers, politicians. Um, they can write things that don't matter. It doesn't matter what they write. It only matters what's in the law. So they can tell you all kind of stuff about what a positive law is. But the only way to really know what a positive law is to look at the law. So you have to forget or avoid looking at or take into consideration the fact that they can say whatever they want, not in the law, because they're outside of their constitutional offices. But when they're writing law, they're acting within their constitutional office. And so they have to conform to the Constitution. They have to stay within their constitutional office. Or, in other words, they have to write laws under the proper authority or with the proper authority. Outside of that authority, outside of their office, when they're just walking around doing whatever they do, they can say and write whatever they want because those things don't have any authority. They don't have the force of a government that's been properly authorized. So, with that, what is a positive law? So, we look to Title One, and Title One has been made positive. So, Title One is in accordance with the Constitution, made or written to be law with proper authority. So, Title One, Chapter 3, Section 204A. Okay, now here it says in all courts, tribunals, and public offices of the United States. So that's important to understand. It's talking about of the United States, not of the United States of America. The United States is the system formed for protecting the United States of America. This is for defense purposes. You can see this in Article 2 of the Constitution, where it says the president is the executive officer of the states, which is the United States of America. And in Article 2, Section 2, where it says the President is the Commander in Chief of the land and naval forces of the United States. So you can start reading this here under A, the United States Code. So the code for the military and the seat of government when it's acting for a military says that whenever titles, so see Title 1, of such code being uh, the USC, United States Code, shall have been enacted into positive law. So when the federal laws for the military have been enacted into positive law, the text thereof shall be legal evidence of the laws therein contained. In all the courts of the federal military and the several states, because there's military lands and military members in the states, and those United States courts in the states are for the military in that state and the territories and insular possessions of the United States, because the United States owns or leases lands outside of the states in other countries. Okay, and that's what it says, and you can look this up, Title 1, Chapter 3, Section 204. This is current as of, I believe, January of this year. So if a title does not have a positive law citation, it's not a law under the Constitution. And the Constitution governs the federal lands and the people on the federal lands, meaning the seat of government when the military is in charge and the military posts. So in Title 1, this is what the positive law looks like. Positive law citation. This is Title 1. This title has been made positive, so this title conforms to the Constitution. And because it is formed to the Constitution, it's constitutional. It was made by people acting in their actual constitutional offices under constitutional authority for the federal government. Then you cite it this very specific way. 1 U.S. Code section, and then you write down the section. Now, if the entire title or code has been made positive, it'll be the positive law citation will be in the front matter, in the very front. If it has not been made positive and it's not a constitutional law, it doesn't have a positive law citation. Sometimes they put the positive law citation in the middle or at the end of the code, and at that point, it's everything after the positive law citation that conforms to the Constitution. It's everything written afterward. 2 United States Code, the Congress has not been made positive. So Title 2 United States Code is not in conformance with the Constitution. Why is that? Because I believe it's because the way that they're running the seat of government is not constitutional. It's not a constitutional government. They don't run it in accordance with the Constitution because they allow people of the state, the inhabitants of the state, to become elected into Congress, whereas the Constitution says that they have to be so many years a citizen of the United States, meaning on federal lands, having served or worked with the military before they can be a constitutional Congress because, or yeah, a member of the Constitutional Congress. And that's because the United States is defense, it's military. This is a hard pill for people to swallow because so many people worship and idolize the Constitution. But the Constitution was made um, along with, to go along with the Articles of Confederation. You see, the Articles of Confederation are the states, and then the states created a military force, and that military force is called the United States. You have the United States of America, the states, who created the United States, the military. The Internal Revenue Code. This is GovInfo. You can go on GovInfo and find this for yourself. 26, United States Code, Internal Revenue Code, has no positive law citation. And this is confusing to people because they say, well, tax is in the Constitution. Yes, but the tax applies to the federal people. The tax is done by the federal government. This is not done by the federal government. This tax is not done by the federal government. I believe it's done by the Federal Reserve Bank. The Federal Reserve Bank, which gives itself a name like Federal Reserve Bank, it also gives itself names like Internal Revenue Code, causing people to, when they first see it, not to question it and just say, oh, well, it's federal, it's part of the government. And it's not. It's not. They don't have constitutional authority to force people to pay taxes, which is why you have to sign the papers. Even to join the military, you have to sign papers. But this Congress here is not even a constitutional Congress. So they made Title II without having constitutional authority to make Title II. They made Title 26 without the Constitution, no constitutional authority. Armed forces, yes, because armed forces is in the Constitution. It's a constitutional um, listed power to create the armed forces, to have an armed forces, to rule and regulate the armed forces, to provide for them, to protect their inventions, all those things listed in the Constitution are for the armed forces. If you look at the Constitution, it says, we the people, which are the armed forces of the United States, the federal lands created for military purposes, are supposed to do these things with a list of things for, meaning it's a contractual, for is often used in contracts for who? The states, the United States of America, shown in the Articles of Confederation. Banks and banking, like the Federal Reserve Bank, it's not a positive law because there's no bank in the Constitution. The founders definitely did not want a bank. They didn't want a national bank. They didn't want someone controlling the currency. So what did they do? They created a Congress that doesn't have to abide by the Constitution. And then they started passing laws. Well, not really laws, but titles, passing papers that don't conform to the Constitution, which are basically contracts that you have to sign in order for them to apply the law or in order for it to become the law. So just like people had to agree to the Constitution by a vote and they collectively passed the Constitution as law, they passed these as laws with your individual signature on their forms. So it becomes a law once you sign their forms. Okay, so there is no Congress that can make actual constitutional laws. It's not there. It's not entitled to. There is no revenue code that's actual law because the Internal Revenue Code um, doesn't have a positive law citation telling us right up front that it's not a law. It doesn't conform to the Constitution. There is no Federal Reserve Bank, and I think people basically know that by now. The Federal Reserve Bank is a trick, it's a joke, it's a manipulation tactic. There's a Title 10 Armed Forces since this title is authorized by the Constitution. Armed forces, we have armed forces in the Constitution. So, Title II, there is a Congress in the Constitution, but not Title II. Not the Title II they have here. This is not authorized by the Constitution. That's word tricks. Congress is in the Constitution. Therefore, Congress is Congress. Congress is a constitutional Congress. That's what they tell us, but it's not true. This Congress, the way they're running Congress in Washington, is not a constitutional Congress. They tell us that right here. It's not. They use this phrase positive law instead of unconstitutional or outside the Constitution or outside the authority of the Constitution because they want to pass all these titles that don't conform to the Constitution. So they get an unconstitutional Congress to pass unconstitutional laws. And if you individually agree, then you agree. They have contracts with you because you signed all their forms. In all courts of the United States, this means all federal courts at the seat and at the places purchased for forts. Military courts and courts by the Congress, which is not the Title II Congress, since that Congress is not according to the Constitution. There are no inferior courts by the Congress as written in Title II, since Title II is not a law. We know it's not a law because it has no positive law citation. Now, there are inferior courts created by an actual constitutional Congress, but this Congress is not it because this Congress is a different Congress. This is part of the corporate government that they passed back in, I don't know, around 1872 or so, when they made a corporate government, and the corporate government has you sign contracts. It gives them and you the right to sue and be sued. It matters not what they say with their with their words individually. It matters not what they write in memorandums, newspapers, emails, on websites. It only matters what they write in law when it's constitutional law. When they write an unconstitutional law, it only matters what you sign. It only matters when you sign the forms, because that's what all these this corporate shadow military industrial complex government does. It has you sign forms to pay them. Every time you pay a tax, you're enlarging the military industrial complex and the corporate Congress, who will eventually take over, if not already completely taken over, the actual constitutional Congress. So if you love the Constitution and you idolize the Constitution, you really want to know what the Constitution is, don't you? Or do you want to know what the corporate Congress tells you it is? The only laws that matter are the ones written that are within the confines of the Constitution, because that is the only power the federal government has. Everything else is a scam, a trick, a circus act, theater, propaganda, a contract requiring your signature. There's no evidence of the law, means no positive law citation. Evidence of the law means there is a positive law citation. So unconstitutional, no positive law. Constitutional, positive law. Let's go back and just look at that real quick again. Okay, so the titles are used in the courts, and the courts can know that the titles have been passed according to the Constitution. So a court will know, is this the constitutional law, or is this not a constitutional law and it's a contract with the corporate government? So when you go to tax court, this is not a constitutional court. It looks like one, and they say the Congress, this is what they used to have on their website. They've changed it since, but the Congress allows us to. Okay, so let me clarify that. If you look a couple years ago on the front page of the tax court, they state their authority as the Congress allows us to, and whatever it says. The Congress allows us to do this, to tax you and to bring you to court and find you guilty. The Congress allows us to do this. The Congress. Okay, the corporate Congress outside the Constitution. So when you're talking about the courts, what courts are you talking about? Corporate courts or federal, actual constitutional courts? What Congress are you talking about? Are you talking about the real constitutional Congress of the United States, um, where people in it are not inhabitants of the state, but are citizens of the federal government, United States military? And by no means at this point am I saying that that would be better to have military in Congress, but I'm saying that this Congress has no authority, and this Internal Revenue Code has no authority until you sign their papers. So it says, whenever titles of such code shall have been enacted into positive law, the text then is legal evidence of the laws therein contained in all the courts of the United States, those federal lands. The several states, so the federal courts inside the states, not just at the seat of government, but on the federal lands in the states. And the lands, the territories, and possessions that the federal government has, where they go to other countries and they lease land to buy, to build a military post. Because there's military posts all around the world, and we know that. And who builds them? The United States. Who runs them? The United States, not the United States of America. And the positive law is prima facie evidence. Prima facie. Prima facie means when you first look at it, so they know. And it's talked about a lot in like law schools and teaching um, logic, that something you look at it, and when you first glance at it, it looks like something. You can see something on it right away. Most people don't see it because they haven't been trained in logic and law. But lawyers and some scientists and mathematicians and analysts, they know because they've been trained in logic. And so they know when you first look at something, it's not always what it seems. You have to look a little deeper. And when you look deeper, you see there is no positive law citation. But when you look quick, you should see that there is a positive law citation. So when you go to a federal court administering actual federal laws, the judge can look and say this is a federal law. It's a constitutional law made by the constitutional government. Or he can look and say, well, there is no positive law citation. Okay, we're talking about a judge sitting in a court. There is no positive law citation, so I'm not administering a constitutional law. I'm interpreting some sort of corporate code and a contract that someone has signed, such as the tax court, which is not a constitutional court. this is what this is the games they try to play. They say, well, the Congress can establish inferior courts. Sure, it can on federal lands for federal purposes in the Constitution. What they're doing is something outside the Constitution, a corporate court. And these corporate courts are not run according to the Constitution, and they have no positive law citation, and they're contracts. And you sign the contract. Anything you sign does not have the authority of the actual law. That's why they make you sign it. And once you sign it, they do whatever they want because you agreed. And whatever they want is the 10, 100 million, bazillion pages of um, code that they want you to read in the Internal Revenue Code in 26 that nobody could actually finish reading or understand or properly apply. Okay, so that's a video on this post on positive laws. More than welcome to share it, screenshot it, go to this website, gov.info or govinfo.gov, whatever the site is, govinfo.gov, and check out some of the stuff here, the titles. I also like to go to OLRC, Office of the Law Revision Council, and I look through their list of codes. We can go there. Quickly show you if you're new to my page. The asterisks show the positive law. No asterisks, no positive law. And these are all updated every month, sometimes every day. This one doesn't have one. Usually right up here, there's a date. This law is current as of such and such date. There. In effect on July 25th, 2023. Okay, so check out these things, read them, look over them, try to understand them, try to understand that the Constitution applies to federal people on federal land being the seat of government and the places purchased for a military post, which is in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17, that the United States is not the United States of America, but the United States is within the United States of America. You can see that in the Constitution, and you can see that in the Articles of Confederation. That the Congress of the United States makes laws for the seat of government when it's enacted in a federal capacity for military purposes, and um, it uh, it is the federal lands inside the states, which Eisenhower, who was an army general, called islands within the states. So the Congress makes laws for those places only. The Constitutional Congress of the United States makes laws for the military. And the president is the executive officer of the United States of America, and he's the commander in chief of the United States Land and Naval Forces. And Amendment 2, it mentions the free state, the right to bear arms being necessary to a free state. The free state is not the federal lands. The free state are everywhere but the federal lands. Okay, so check this stuff out. If you have any questions, as always, post them. Please share the videos, share links, share the screenshots. And if you want to read what I just said in the post, you go to the community room on my YouTube channel. And this is how I do it. I just go here and there. I've left this post up. I'm going to leave it up for a little while so everyone can get a chance to check it out. So like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.